areas for the SWBA. We've identified changes to the existing knowledge areas and the new knowledge area as well. And the way we've organized is through people, process, and technology. It's every good initiative, but we also added acquisition in here. Because again, as I said, as consumers, we're part of the problem. We need to be more demanding, we need to be more informed. And so through the acquisition part of it, we include our acquisition working group, and Stan Wisseman is the co-chair of that. We have our acquisition guide that includes due diligence questionnaires, things you ought to be asking of your suppliers that you haven't been asking. And it depends if you're buying COTS or if you're actually contracting for somebody to develop software for you. Things you ought to be asking of them. And when you contract with them, there's actually sample language that you can use. And so what are the products? And these are all free for you. You can go on the web, you can download these, and you can start using these now. So it's our Build Security In website through the U.S. Computer Emergency Readiness Team and our Software Assurance Community Portal. Those, through either one of those websites, it'll bring you to these resources. The first is our body of knowledge, which is primarily for curriculum developers, and that's either at the university level or if you've got training organizations. In fact, being announced tomorrow is a new certification on secure software development, so I'm not the one to be announcing that. We also have the Organization for Software Systems Security Principles and Guidelines, and again, for curriculum developers in basically integrating security into software engineering, computer science, or MIS curriculum. Our developers guide, Stan's going to talk a little bit more about that, but it really looks at how do you security enhance your existing product development lifecycle and where you can start making some touch points here. Our software security assurance state-of-the-art report really surveyed where we are, and this is now about a year old, as far as it baselined where we're globally, who's focused on software assurance and what they're doing, and so it's a good starting basis. We have a system assurance guide. We're spending a lot of effort with standards bodies because, quite frankly, it's not sufficient just for the Department of Homeland Security or even the U.S. federal government to say this is important. We have to have it embodied within international standards because standards are a common way that we communicate between suppliers and consumers, between government and industry, between insurance organizations and those that they insure. We also have a practical measurement framework for software assurance and information security because we found that we don't have the right information to make decisions when it comes down to software security. We don't do measurement for the sake of measurement. We do it to provide the indicators so that you can become more informed. And through that, we're actually sponsoring work with the National Institute for Standards and Technology through our SUMMATE project, Software Assurance Metrics and Tool Evaluation, where we qualify tools. Our ecosystem, it literally is a plug and play of tools. And why is that important? It's based on the common weakness enumeration. Steve Christie's in the back there. He's one of the lead supporters within that, within the MITRE Corporation. And this is work that we're funding to do this. It's a common way for us to talk about exploitable constructs within programs, within your code itself. And the beauty of having the ecosystem where tools that are compatible with that, literally one tool that will report out exploitable weaknesses. I've had some people say, well, what do I do with that? In fact, some people said, I'd rather not know. But the reality is you can do two things. One is knowing those exploitable weaknesses in development, you can start cleaning them up. But if you don't have time to clean them up, or if you're a consumer and you can't do that, you can literally use one of the other tools that will use the output of the other and read those exploitable weaknesses, and it will apply a virtual patch. A virtual patch is a code wrapper or an application firewall. Now, from a consumer perspective, that's just as good because while it doesn't fix the exploitable construct, it blocks the path to it. And that's really what we're looking for, is making sure that you can't be exploited. Stan's going to talk a little bit about our software assurance and acquisition, mitigating risk to the enterprise. We also have the software project management for software assurance state-of-the-art report. All of these are freely downloadable. You can use them. You can even republish them. We do ask that you at least give some recognition to where you got the material. And we're also putting out more, not just through the websites, but through various professional journals. In fact, this month's issue of Crosstalk, the Journal of Defense Software Engineering, was on application security. And again, it's a freely downloadable resource. If you go to the website, it's process agnostic, but it addresses the entire life cycle. Because you may come from a agile house. You may say the way we do business is we use Extreme or Scrum, or we're not going to say what is the right way of doing it, but I want to be able to say that if I'm going to deal with your organization, can I at least understand that you have fundamental capabilities of delivering secure products and services? And that's why we deal with the touch points and their artifacts. So through requirements engineering, architecture and design, code and integration, test and fielding and supporting of systems, we've got the practices identified, and that's how the website is organized. And if you don't want to go to the website, you can get the book. Software Security Engineering, A Guide for Project Managers, was published in May by the primary authors of many of the articles that we have on the website. The other way of getting material is go directly to our Software Assurance Community Portal. It's divided by the way our work groups are: workforce education training, processes and practices, technology tools and product evaluation, acquisition and outsourcing, measurement, business case, and malware attribution. And the reason we've been working with malware, and specifically with the Anti-Spyware Coalition, is we found out that no organization likes their code called malicious. Don't call my code malware. Well, what we're looking at is code behavior. And well, how many of you think that a keylogger is a bad thing? Well, nobody's raising your hand, right? But it's like, some of you think that it is. But that exact same keylogger could be used as part of a parental control. It just depends on how it was applied, and was it installed with user consent. If you install a keylogger and I don't know about it, and oh, by the way, it's gathering that information, now reporting back to the home company, I would consider that malicious. As I mentioned, the Software Security Assurance State-of-the-Art Report is something that you ought to download. It gives you a very good baseline for getting started with this. If you wanted to get started today, every one of you I know has started focusing on security, right? Nod your head in agreement with that. Because you have to understand how you're doing work today. We're not saying you have to do drastic changes, but start defining the relevant coding standards and policies. I'm not going to tell you which programming language you have to use, even though we can give you guidance. That's why we've been working with ISO. And there's a technical report coming out the end of next year that will say, based on your domain and your applications, here's the best coding language that you might use for it. But we understand that selection of a coding language, a programming language, is usually not a technical decision. It basically says our folks use Java. So that's it. That's the one you've selected, or C and C++. So depending on what you've selected, we can say just because a language allows you to do something doesn't mean that you should. The fact that a language allows you to implement a buffer overrun doesn't mean that you should. And so by having a technical report coming out from ISO, we've got tools out there that can basically tell you where you conform it with that. It's a good way of being informed about it. You want to be able to define your roles and responsibilities, provide awareness and training programs. And it has to be across the corporation or the enterprise. You want to be able to develop a security risk management process management framework, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but also expose your security needs and requirements. Again, too often we're thinking that somebody should have explicitly told me what those were, but often consumers aren't going to articulate security requirements down to the software level. You want to be able to integrate threat modeling during design. How many of you have done any type of threat analysis or threat modeling as part of your development activities? That's good. You realize you're actually a larger percentage of this population answers in the affirmative than in most cases. So you're at least aware of the value of what that brings to you. And integrate automated security code scanning. Now, I know you're using some form of tools.